Okay, tonight is the 16th of August 2011. This is the fourth night. We're speaking on the Udana. Now we come to chapter 7, the minor section or minor chapter, Culavagga. 7.1 Khuddaka Baddiya Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying near Savatthi in the Jeta wood at Anathapindika's monastery. On that occasion the Venerable Sariputta, by a variety of means, was instructing, rousing, inspiring and gladdening the Venerable Baddiya, the dwarf, with talk on Dhamma. Then, while the Venerable Baddiya, the dwarf, was being instructed by the Venerable Sariputta with talk on Dhamma, his mind was freed from the asavas without grasping. The Lord saw that while the Venerable Baddiya, the dwarf, was being instructed by the Venerable Sariputta with talk on Dhamma, his mind was freed from the asavas without grasping. Then, on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance: above, below, and everywhere released, one not observing I am this, has crossed the flood not crossed before, freed thus with no renewal of being. This Khuddaka Baddiya, or Baddiya the dwarf, supposed to be the Arahant who is not nice to look at. He's like a dwarf, and in other ways also not nice to look at. But Buddha says he has great psychic powers. So you can see here, it was Venerable Sariputta who helped him become enlightened. But we find the Mahayana books, they always put down Sariputta as without wisdom. And that is because when Devadatta split the Sangha, caused the schism of the Sangha, the Buddha asked Venerable Sariputta to go and inform all the people that this Devadatta has nothing to do with the Buddha anymore. Whatever he says and does, he does not represent the Buddha. So Venerable Sariputta went around telling the lay people. So this is one of the reasons. Seems like the Mahayana, they adopt some of the things that Devadatta practice, like vegetarian practice and all that. Now 7.2 Dutiya Khuddaka Baddiya Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying near Savatthi in the Jeta wood at Anathapindika's monastery. On that occasion the Venerable Sariputta, by a variety of means, was instructing, rousing, inspiring and gladdening the Venerable Baddiya, the dwarf, with talk on Dhamma, much more since he considered him to be still a learner. The Lord saw the Venerable Sariputta instructing, rousing, inspiring and gladdening the Venerable Baddiya, the dwarf, with talk on Dhamma. Then, on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance: He has cut the round, won the desireless, the dried up river flows no more, the severed round does not revolve. Just this is the end of suffering. The round means the round of rebirths. The river means a river of life. 7.3 Patama Satta Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying near Savatthi in the Jeta wood at Anathapindika's monastery. At that time most people in Savatthi clung excessively to sensual pleasures. They lived greedy for, longing for, bound by, infatuated with, addicted to and intoxicated by sensual pleasures. Now a number of monks, having put on their robes in the forenoon and taken their bows and outer cloaks, entered Savatthi for alms food. Having walked in Savatthi for alms food and returned after the meal, they approached the Lord, prostrated themselves, sat down to one side and said, Here in Savatthi, revered Sir, most people cling excessively to sensual pleasures. They live greedy for, longing for, bound by, infatuated with, addicted to, and intoxicated by sensual pleasures. Then, on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance: clinging to sense pleasures, to sensual ties, seeing in fetters nothing to be blamed, never will those tied down by fetters cross the flood so wide and great. That means they'll never cross over to Nibbana, because they are clinging to sensual pleasures, fettered by sensual pleasures. 7.4 Dutiya Satta Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying near Savatthi in the Jeta wood at Anathapindika's monastery. On that occasion, most people in Savatthi clung to sensual pleasures. They lived greedy for, longing for, bound by, infatuated with, addicted to, and intoxicated by sensual pleasures. Now the Lord, having robed himself in the forenoon and taken his bowl and outer cloak, entered Savatthi for alms food. The Lord saw how most people in Savatthi were clinging to sensual pleasures and were greedy for sensual pleasures. Then, on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance: blinded by sense pleasures, enmeshed in the net, covered by the cloak of craving, bound in the bondage of negligence, like fish in a fisherman's trap, they go to decay and death, as a suckling calf to its mother. All beings, we tend to follow our tendencies, and our tendency is to enjoy and shrink from suffering. 7.5 Para Khuddaka Badiya Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying near Savatthi in the Jeta wood at Anathapindika's monastery. On that occasion the Venerable Badiya the dwarf, following behind a number of monks, was approaching the Lord. The Lord saw from afar the Venerable Badiya the dwarf coming, following behind a number of monks, ugly, unsightly, deformed, and generally despised by the monks. On seeing him, he said to the monks, "Monks, do you see that monk coming, following behind a number of monks, ugly, unsightly, deformed, and generally despised by the monks?" And they said, "Yes, revered sir." And the Buddha said, "Monks, that monk is of great supernormal potency and power. It is not easy to find any attainment which that monk has not already attained. He has realized here and now, through his own direct knowledge, that unequal goal of the holy life, for the sake of which sons of good family rightly go forth from home to the homeless state, and entering into it, he abides in it." Then, on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance: "Faultless, with its white awning, the one-spoke chariot rolls. See him coming, trouble-free, the stream cut, no more in bondage." So you see this Venerable Badiya, he has great supernormal psychic powers, whereas the Arahant who helped him to become enlightened, Venerable Sariputta himself does not have psychic power, but his disciple has great psychic power. So monks, when they become enlightened, because of past karma, some of them they attain psychic power naturally. You know, the later books like the Mahayana books and the commentaries and the later books which the Hinayana monks follow, they talk about paramis, that to become enlightened, you got to develop the paramis. The Mahayanis talk about 6 paramis, the Hinayanis talk about 10 paramis. And you see somebody like this Badiya, he's ugly, unsightly, deformed, and despised by the other monks. So if you look at him, you think he got no parami. And yet he can become enlightened, fully enlightened. So enlightenment has nothing to do with paramis. The paramis were created later. 7.6 Tanha Sankaya Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying near Savatthi in the Jeta wood at Anathapindika's monastery. On that occasion the Venerable Anyata Kondanya, was sitting cross-legged not far from the Lord, holding his body erect and reviewing his liberation by the destruction of craving. The Lord saw the Venerable Anyata Kondanya sitting cross-legged not far away, holding his body erect and reviewing his liberation by the destruction of craving. Then, on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance: "For whom there is no root and soil, there are no leaves, how then creepers? Who can blame that heroic sage, free from every form of bondage? Even the Devas praise such a one. By Brahma too he is praised." This simile of the plant has no root, no soil, so it's totally cut off. The basis of rebirth, just like the tree cannot grow anymore. 7.7 Papanchakaya Sutta. Papancha is proliferation. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying near Savatthi in the Jeta wood at Anathapindika's monastery. On that occasion the Lord was sitting reviewing his own abandonment of perceptions and concepts born of proliferation. Then the Lord, on realizing his own abandonment of perceptions and concepts born of proliferation, uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance: "The world with its devas does not despise that cravingless sage as he fares along, for whom there are no proliferations and stagnation, who has overcome the tether and bar." 7.8 Kachana Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying near Savatthi in the Jeta wood at Anathapindika's monastery. On that occasion the Venerable Mahakachana was sitting cross-legged not far from the Lord, holding his body erect, having mindfulness with regard to the body set up and well established within him. The Lord saw the Venerable Mahakachana sitting cross-legged not far away, holding his body erect, having mindfulness with regard to the body set up and well established within him. Then, on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance: "He for whom mindfulness of the body is always constantly established thus, if there had not been, there would not be for me. There will not be, and there will not be for me. If he dwells upon that in graded steps, in time he will pass beyond attachment." This one we went through this verse last night. 7.9 Upadana Sutta. Udapana Sutta, the well. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was journeying among the Malas together with a large Sangha of monks, and came to the Brahmin village of the Malas called Tuna. The Brahmin householders who lived in Tuna heard: "The recluse Gotama, the Sakyan's son, who went forth from the Sakyan clan, has been journeying among the Malas together with a large Sangha of monks, and has arrived at Tuna." They then filled the well to the brim with grass and chaff, thinking, "Don't let those shaven-headed recluses get water to drink." You see, they're so bad-hearted. They refused to allow the monks to use the well. Then the Lord stepped off the road, and going up to the foot of a certain tree, sat down on a seat prepared for him. Sitting there, the Lord addressed the Venerable Ananda: "Come, Ananda, fetch me some water from that well." Thereupon the Venerable Ananda said to the Lord: "Just now, revered Sir, the Brahmin householders living in Tuna filled the well to the brim with grass and chaff, thinking, 'Don't let those shaven-headed recluses get water to drink.'" Then a second time the Lord addressed the Venerable Ananda: "Come, Ananda, fetch me some water." And a second time the Venerable Ananda said to the Lord: "Just now, revered Sir, the Brahmin householders filled the well to the brim with grass and chaff." Then for a third time the Lord addressed the Venerable Ananda: "Come, Ananda, fetch me some water from that well." "Yes, revered Sir," the Venerable Ananda replied, and taking a bowl he went to the well. Now as the Venerable Ananda was approaching it, the well threw up all its grass and chaff from its mouth, and stood filled to the brim with pure, clean, clear water, as if it were overflowing. Then the Venerable Ananda thought, "It is indeed wonderful, it is indeed marvelous, the great supernormal potency and power of the Tathagata. As I was approaching this well, it threw up all that grass and chaff from its mouth, and now stands filled to the brim with pure, clean, clear water, as if it were overflowing." And taking some water in the bowl, he approached the Lord and said, "It is indeed wonderful, it is indeed marvelous, the great supernormal potency and power of the Tathagata. This well now stands filled to the brim with pure, clean, clear water, as if it were overflowing. Drink the water, Lord, drink the water, Sugata." Then, on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance: "What use is there for a well if there is water everywhere? When craving's root is severed, what should one go about seeking?" This one, either the Buddha used his psychic power to make all the dirt come out, or the Devas, they respect the Buddha so much, they perform the psychic power. 7.10 Udana Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying near Kosambi in the Gosita monastery. At that time the women's quarters in the royal park of King Udana had burned down, and 500 women headed by Samavati had died. Then a number of monks, having put on their robes in the forenoon and taken their bowls and outer cloaks, entered Kosambi for alms food. Having walked in Kosambi for alms food and returned after the meal, they approached the Lord, prostrated themselves, sat down to one side, and said to the Lord, "Revered Sir, the women's quarters in the royal park of King Udana have burned down, and 500 women headed by Samavati have died. What is the destiny, what is the future birth of those women lay followers?" And the Buddha said, "Monks, some of these women lay followers were stream enterers, some once returners, some never returners, that means Sotapanna, Sakadagamin, and Anagamin. Not fruitless was the death of any of those women lay followers." Then, on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance: "The world is held in bondage by delusion, and only appears to be capable to a fool, held in bondage by clinging and wrapped up in darkness. It appears to be eternal, but for one who sees, there is nothing." This story about this Samavati dying in that fire, I think is also in the Dhammapada commentary. Now we come to chapter 8. Pataligamiyavagga, the Patali village, chapter on the Patali village. 8.1 Patama Parinibbana Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying near Savatthi in the Jeta wood at Anathapindika's monastery. On that occasion the Lord was instructing, rousing, inspiring, and gladdening the monks with the Dhamma talk connected with Nibbana. And those monks, being receptive and attentive and concentrating the whole mind, were intent on listening to Dhamma. Then, on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance: "There is, monks, that base where there is no earth, no water, no fire, no air, no base consisting of the infinity of space, no base consisting of the infinity of consciousness, no base consisting of nothingness, no base consisting of neither perception nor non-perception, neither this world nor another world nor both, neither sun nor moon. Here, monks, I say there is no coming, no going, no staying, no deceasing, no uprising, not fixed, not movable, it has no support. Just this is the end of suffering." So here the Buddha is talking about the state of cessation of perception and feeling, which is also the cessation of consciousness. When the normal six consciousness stops, there is no, the four elements, earth, water, fire, air or wind, signifies the physical world. So the physical world has disappeared. And also there is no sun and moon there. And although there is no sun and moon, yet it is bright. But there is no objects there also. And when there is no objects, there is no self also. So when a person enters this state of cessation of perception and feeling, when he comes out of it, he automatically becomes an arahant. 8.2 Dutiya Parinibbana Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying near Savatthi in the Jeta wood at Anathapindika's monastery. On that occasion the Lord was instructing the monks with the Dhamma talk connected with Nibbana, and those monks were intent on listening to Dhamma. Then on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance. The uninclined is hard to see. The truth is not easy to see. Craving is penetrated by one who knows. For one who sees, there is nothing. This word, uninclined, anatta, from the word natta, it means inclined, and meaning craving. So when there's uninclined, there's no craving. It's nibbana. It's hard to see. 8.3 Tatya Parinibbana Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying near Savatthi in the Jeta wood at Anathapindika's monastery. On that occasion the Lord was instructing the monks with the Dhamma talk connected with Nibbana, and those monks were intent on listening to Dhamma. Then on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance. There is monks, are not born, are not I'll use some other translation. There is monks and unborn, unbecome and uncreated and unconditioned. If monks, there were not the unborn, the unbecome, the uncreated, the unconditioned, no escape would be discerned from what is born, from what is become, from what is created, from what is conditioned. But since there is an unborn and unbecome, uncreated, unconditioned, therefore an escape is discerned, is seen from what is born, from what is become, what is created, what is conditioned. This is a very interesting sutta, and here, because the world is something that is born, our earth came into being, and one day it will be destroyed. So the world has been born, the world has become, everything in the world was created and is conditioned. But the Buddha says there is a state where there is no birth, there is no becoming, there is no creation, there is no condition. And this is the state of Nibbana, or Parinibbana. So if we talk about God, this is God. So many years ago, he wanted every religion to state what is their God. So this was the explanation given by the senior Buddhist monk, that we have this. This is our aim, to be one with God, to be one with the unborn, the unbecome, the uncreated, unconditioned. So because even like in Taoism and in Islam, they say God cannot be described. But everybody knows God is unborn. God is uncreated. So they can accept this explanation. Although we don't pray to a figure that we think is God, but this is our concept of God. This is what we aim for. 8.4 Chatutta Parinibbana Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying near Savatthi in the Jeta wood at Anathapindika's monastery. On that occasion the Lord was instructing the monks with the Dhamma talk connected with Nibbana, and those monks were intent on listening to Dhamma. Then on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance. For the supported there is instability, for the unsupported there is no instability. When there is no instability, there is serenity. When there is serenity, there is no inclination. When there is no inclination, there is no coming and going. When there is no coming and going, there is no disease and uprising of birth. When there is no disease and uprising of birth, there is neither here nor beyond nor in between the two. Just this is the end of suffering. Here refers to this world, and beyond is another world. For the supported means for the condition. Everything in the world is supported by conditions. And because it is supported by conditions, it is unstable. When you remove the conditions, then there is no support for it. 8.5 Chunda Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord, while walking on tour among the Malas together with a large Sangha of monks, arrived at Pava. And the Lord stayed at Pava in the mango grove of Chunda the smith. Now Chunda the smith heard. It is said that the Lord, while walking on tour among the Malas together with a large Sangha of monks, has arrived at Pava and is staying at Pava in my mango grove. Then Chunda the smith approached the Lord, prostrated himself and sat down to one side. And the Lord instructed, roused, inspired and gladdened him with a talk on Dhamma. Then Chunda the smith, being instructed, roused, inspired and gladdened by the Lord's talk on Dhamma, said to the Lord, please consent, revered Sir, to my providing a meal tomorrow for the Lord together with the Sangha of monks. The Lord consented by remaining silent. Then, on seeing that the Lord had consented, Chunda the smith rose from his seat, prostrated himself before the Lord, and keeping his right side towards him, went away. When the night had ended, Chunda the smith prepared in his own dwelling choice, solid and soft food, including a quantity of Sukara Madhava, and announced to the Lord the time for the meal, saying, it is time, revered Sir, the meal is ready. Stop here for a moment. This Sukara Madhava is supposed to be pork, but some people like the Mahayanis, they don't accept that the Buddha ate meat, so they say that it is mushroom. Then the Lord, putting on his robe in the forenoon and taking his bowl and outer cloak, together with the Sangha of monks, went to the dwelling of Chunda the smith. On arriving, he sat down on the seat prepared for him and said to Chunda the smith, serve me, Chunda, with that Sukara Madhava you have prepared, and serve the Sangha of monks with the other food. Very well, revered Sir, said Chunda the smith. And he served the Lord with the Sukara Madhava and the Sangha of monks with the other prepared food. Then the Lord said to Chunda the smith, bury in a pit what is left over of the Sukara Madhava, Chunda, for I do not see in this world with its Devas, Maras and Brahmas, among humankind with its recluses and Brahmins, its princes and ordinary people, anyone here who could eat and fully digest it other than the Tathagata. Very well, revered Sir, Chunda the smith replied, and he buried what was left over of the Sukara Madhava in a pit. Then he returned to the Lord, prostrated himself and sat down to one side. As he sat there, the Lord instructed, roused, inspired and gladdened him with a talk on Dhamma. Then he rose from his seat and departed. Stop here for a moment. You see, this man, he has a lot of faith in the Buddha. So when the Buddha told him to bury the rest of the meat in a hole, he did exactly what the Buddha asked, without asking why and without doing something else. Then after the Lord had eaten the food of Chunda the smith, a severe sickness arose in him, dysentery accompanied by the passing of blood, and dire and deadly pains. These pains the Lord endured, mindful and clearly comprehending, without complaint. Then the Lord said to the Venerable Ananda, come Ananda, we will go to Kusinara. On eating the smith Chunda's food, so I heard, the wise one felt a sickness, dire as to end in death. When he ate the Sukara Madhava, a dire sickness arose in the teacher. Then being purged of it, the Lord announced, I will go to the city of Kusinara. Then the Lord stepped off the road, went up to the foot of a tree and said to the Venerable Ananda, come Ananda, fold my robe in four and prepare a seat. I am tired and wish to sit down. Yes, revered Sir, the Venerable Ananda replied to the Lord, and folding the robe in four, he prepared, that means 4 layers, he prepared a seat and the Lord sat down. Sitting there, the Lord addressed the Venerable Ananda, come Ananda, fetch me some water, I am thirsty Ananda and wish to drink. Thereupon the Venerable Ananda said to the Lord, Just now, revered Sir, as many as 500 wagons have crossed over, and the shallow water stirred up the wheels flows muddied. But there is the river Khuddaka close by, with clear, pleasant, cool, pure water, easily approachable and delightfully situated. Here the Lord can drink the water and refresh his body. So they had come to a stream, and the Buddha asked him to get some water for the stream. But these 500 horses had just passed by, and so the water was dirty. Then the second time and the third time the Lord said, "Come, Ananda, fetch me some water." "Very well, revered Sir," the Venerable Ananda replied to the Lord, and taking a bowl he went to the stream. Then as the Venerable Ananda approached, that shallow water, stirred up by the wheels and flowing muddied, flowed pure, clear and unmuddied. Then the Venerable Ananda thought, "It is indeed wonderful, it is indeed marvelous, the great supernormal potency and power of the Tathagata. This stream now flows pure, clear and unmuddied." And taking some water in the bowl, he approached the Lord and said, "It is indeed wonderful, it is indeed marvelous, the great supernormal potency and power of the Tathagata. Drink the water, Lord, drink the water, Sugata." And the Lord drank the water. Then the Lord, together with a large sangha of monks, went to the river Khuddaka, and entering into the water, he bathed and drank. Having come out of the water, he went to a mango grove and said to the Venerable Khuddaka, "Come, Khuddaka, fold my robe in four and prepare a couch. I am tired and wish to lie down." "Yes, revered Sir," the Venerable Khuddaka replied. And folding the robe in four, he prepared a couch, and the Lord lay down on his right side in the lion's resting posture, placing one foot on the other, mindful and clearly comprehending, determining the time of arising. And the Venerable Khuddaka sat down in front of the Lord. The Buddha came to the Khuddaka river with pure, pleasant, clear waters. The teacher immersed his weary frame, the Tathagata, incomparable in the world, having bathed, drank, and come back out. The honored teacher amid the group of monks, the foremost teacher, the Lord here now, the great sage, went to the mango grove. To the monk called Khuddaka, he said, "Prepare my robe folded into four." Ordered by the composed one, Khuddaka quickly laid out the four-folded robe. The teacher laid down his weary frame, and Khuddaka sat down there in front. Then the Lord said to the Venerable Ananda, "It may be, Ananda, that someone will cause remorse in Khuddaka the smith by saying, 'It is a loss for you, friend Khuddaka, it is an ill gain for you that the Tathagata attained final Nibbana after he received his last meal from you.' That remorse of Khuddaka the smith should be dispelled in this way. 'It is a gain for you, friend Khuddaka, it is a great gain for you that the Tathagata attained final Nibbana after he received his last meal from you. Face to face I heard it from the Lord, friend Khuddaka, face to face I learnt it. These two offerings of alms food are of equal fruit, of equal result, of very much greater fruit and profit than any other offering of alms food.' What two? That offering of alms food which the Tathagata ate just before he realized supreme enlightenment, and that offering of alms food which the Tathagata ate just before he attained final Nibbana, in the Nibbana element with no residue left. These two offerings of alms food are of equal fruit, of equal result, of very much greater fruit and profit than any other offering of alms food. A deed has been performed by the worthy Khuddaka the smith, conducive to long life, beauty, happiness, heaven, fame and supremacy. In this way, the remorse of Khuddaka the smith should be dispelled. Then, on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance: "Merit grows for one who gives, no enmity builds up for one restrained. One skilled abandons evil deeds, with passion, hate and delusion exhausted, one attains release, final Nibbana." This story is also found in this incident is also found in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, detailing the last days of the Buddha. So the Buddha knew that after taking the offering of Khuddaka the smith, that he will pass away. That's why, but this meal is very meritorious. So the Buddha, after eating the food, told Chunda the smith, nobody else has the blessings to eat this food, so go and dig a hole and bury it in there. And Chunda did that. And then after that, after eating the food, the Buddha purged, and then later he passed away. But you notice at the age of 80, the Buddha was still fit, still walking around and walking long distance some more. Most of us, by the time we reach 80, will be bedridden. Cannot even walk 1 mile, but the Buddha walked a long distance. He particularly wanted to go to a certain place to pass away. And that place was a place where long time ago he was a universal monarch, wheel-turning king, king of the whole world. And as a human being, that is the happiest life you can have. As a worldling, is to be a real universal monarch, king of the whole world. So because of the memories, he went back to the place to pass away. 8.6 Pataligamiyavagga. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord, while walking on tour among the people of Magadha, together with a large sangha of monks, arrived at the village of Patali and stayed there. The lay followers of Patali village heard. It is said that the Lord, while walking on tour among the people of Magadha, together with a large sangha of monks, has arrived at Patali village. Then the lay followers of Patali village approached the Lord, prostrated themselves, sat down to one side, and said to the Lord, "Revered Sir, let the Lord consent to lodge in our rest house." The Lord consented by remaining silent. Then on seeing that the Lord had consented, the lay followers of Patali village rose from their seats, prostrated themselves before the Lord, and keeping their right sides towards him, went to the rest house. On arriving, they spread coverings over the whole floor of the rest house, prepared seats, placed a water jar there, and set up an oil lamp. Then they went to the Lord, prostrated themselves, and standing there they said to the Lord, "The whole floor of the rest house has been spread with coverings, seats are prepared, a water jar has been placed there, and an oil lamp set up. Let the Lord do now what he thinks it time to do." Then the Lord, robing himself in the forenoon and taking his bowl and outer cloak, went to the rest house together with the sangha of monks. On arriving, he washed his feet, entered the rest house, and sat down by the middle pillar facing east. The sangha of monks sat down near the western wall, facing east with the Lord before them. And the lay followers of Patali village, having washed their feet, entered the rest house and sat down near the eastern wall, facing west with the Lord in front of them. Then the Lord addressed the lay followers of Patali village. There are, householders, these 5 disadvantages for the immoral person through his failing in virtue, sila. What are the 5? Here, householders, the immoral, unvirtuous person through negligence suffers great loss of wealth. This is the first disadvantage for the immoral person through his failing in virtue. Furthermore, householders, an evil repute is spread about concerning an immoral, unvirtuous person. This is the second disadvantage. Again, householders, whatever assembly an immoral, unvirtuous person approaches, whether an assembly of nobles, Brahmins, householders, or recluses, he approaches lacking confidence and assurance. This is the third disadvantage. Again, householders, an immoral, unvirtuous person dies confused. This is the fourth disadvantage. Finally, householders, upon the breaking up of the body after death, an immoral, unvirtuous person re-arises in a realm of misery and unhappy state, a place of downfall, hell. This is the fifth disadvantage. These householders are the 5 disadvantages for the immoral person through his failing in virtue. Stop here for a moment. So an immoral person, he does not keep his precepts. Maybe he drinks too much, gambles too much, womanizes too much and all that. So his wealth easily will be squandered away. Secondly, he has a bad reputation. If he wants to marry some young girl, the mother will probably object. This person has a bad reputation. And then thirdly, when he approaches a lot of people, he is not so confident because he does things that are blamable. Then fourthly, people who don't keep the sila because of killing, because of stealing, sexual misconduct and all that, when they die, their mind is very disturbed. They see unpleasant visions, ghosts or hell beings come to pull them away. And then after dying, they go to a woeful place of rebirth. There are householders, these 5 benefits for a moral person through his achievement in virtue. What are the 5? Here, householders, the moral virtuous person through diligence obtains a great mass of wealth. This is the first benefit for the moral person through his achievement in virtue. Furthermore, householders, a good repute is spread about concerning a moral virtuous person. This is the second benefit. Again, householders, whatever assembly a moral virtuous person approaches, he approaches confident and assured. This is the third benefit. Again, householders, a moral virtuous person dies unconfused. This is the fourth benefit. Finally, householders, upon the breaking up of the body after death, a moral virtuous person re-arises in a happy state in a heavenly world. This is the fifth benefit. These householders are the 5 benefits for the moral person through his achievement in virtue. Then the Lord, having instructed, roused, inspired and gladdened the lay followers of Patali village with talk on Dhamma for much of the night, sent them away, saying, "The night is far spent, householders. Do now what you think it is time to do." Then the lay followers of Patali village, being pleased with and appreciative of what the Lord had said, rose from their seats, prostrated themselves before the Lord, and keeping their right sides towards him, departed. Soon after the lay followers of Patali village had departed, the Lord retired to an empty room. At that time, Sunida and Vasakara, government ministers of Magadha, were building a city at Patali village to ward off the Vajis, and a large number of Devatas, counted in thousands, occupied sites around Patali village. Wherever powerful Devatas occupy sites, powerful kings and royal ministers are inclined to build settlements. And wherever middling and minor Devatas occupy sites, middling and minor kings and royal ministers are inclined to build settlements. Now with the divine eye purified and surpassing that of humans, the Lord saw those Devatas, counted in thousands, occupying sites around Patali village. Then the Lord, at the end of the night when dawn was approaching, got up and said to the Venerable Ananda, "Ananda, who is building a city at Patali village?" And Venerable Ananda said, "Sunida and Vasakara, the government ministers of Magadha, revered sir, are building a city at Patali village to ward off the Vajis." And the Buddha said, "It is as if Sunida and Vasakara had consulted the Devas of the Tavatimsa heaven, Ananda, before deciding on building a city at Patali village to ward off the Vajis. I have seen, Ananda, with the divine eye, large numbers of Devatas, counted in thousands, occupying sites around Patali village. Wherever powerful Devatas occupy sites, kings and royal ministers are inclined to build settlements. As far as the sphere of influence of the Noble One extends, Ananda, as far as the trade routes spread, this will be the chief city where bales of merchandise will be opened up. But Pataliputta, Ananda, will suffer 3 disasters from fire, from water, and from the breaking of an alliance." Then Sunida and Vasakara, the government ministers of Magadha, approached the Lord, exchanged friendly greetings with him, stood to one side and said, "Please consent, good Gotama, to our providing a meal tomorrow for you together with the Sangha of monks." The Lord consented by remaining silent. Then on seeing that the Lord had consented, Sunida and Vasakara went to their own dwelling. Having prepared their choice, solid and soft food, they announced to the Lord the time for the meal, saying, "It is time, good Gotama, the meal is ready." Then the Lord, putting on his robe in the forenoon and taking his bowl and outer cloak, together with the Sangha of monks, went to the dwelling of Sunida and Vasakara. On arriving, he sat down on the seat prepared for him. Then Sunida and Vasakara, the government ministers of Magadha, served and satisfied with their own hands the Sangha of monks headed by the Buddha with choice food, both solid and soft. Then when the Lord had eaten and washed his hand and bowl, Sunida and Vasakara, choosing a low seat, sat down to one side. The Lord thanked Sunida and Vasakara with these verses. In whatever place a wise man sets up his home, here he should feed the virtuous, the controlled who lead the holy life. To those devatas there, he should make offerings. Revered, they will revere him. Honored, they will honor him. They will show compassion for him as a mother shows for her own child. A man for whom devatas have compassion always has good fortune. Having thanked Sunida and Vasakara with these verses, the Lord rose from his seat and departed. On that occasion, Sunida and Vasakara followed in the footsteps of the Lord, thinking, whichever gate the recluse Gotama leaves by today will be called the Gotama gate, and the ford by which he will cross the river Ganges will be called the Gotama ford, and the gate by which the Lord departed came to be called the Gotama gate. Then the Lord approached the river Ganges, but at that time the river was so full that a crow standing on the bank could drink from it. Some people there, wishing to cross to the other shore, were searching for a boat, some were searching for a floating log, and some were constructing a raft. Then just as a strong man might extend his flexed arm, or flex his extended arm, so did the Lord vanish from the hither bank of the river Ganges and reappear on the far bank, together with the Sangha of monks. And the Lord saw those people constructing a raft, etc. Then on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance. Those who have made a bridge cross over the river flood, leaving the swampy pools behind. While people are binding a raft, the wise are already across. 8.7 Dve Da Pata Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was journeying along a road among the people of Kosala with the Venerable Nagasamala as his attendant. As they went along, the Venerable Nagasamala saw the road divided, and on perceiving this said to the Lord, Revered Sir, that is the way, let us go that way. Whereupon the Lord said to the Venerable Nagasamala, This is the way, Nagasamala, let us go this way. A second time and a third time, the Venerable Nagasamala said to the Lord, Revered Sir, that is the way, let us go that way. And a second and a third time the Lord said, This is the way, Nagasamala, let us go this way. Then the Venerable Nagasamala put the Lord's bowl and cloak down on the ground and went off, saying, Here, revered Sir, is the Lord's bowl and cloak. And as the Venerable Nagasamala was going along that road, robbers came upon him, knocked him down and kicked him and broke his bowl and tore his robe. Then the Venerable Nagasamala, with broken bowl and torn robe, went back to the Lord. Having prostrated himself before the Lord, he sat down to one side and said, Just now, revered Sir, as I was going along that road, robbers came upon me, knocked me down and kicked me and broke my bowl and tore my robe. Then on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance. Traveling together, dwelling as one, a wise man must mix with foolish people, but having known a bad one, he leaves him behind, as a milk-drinking heron leaves the water. So this silly disciple won't listen to the master, thinks he's smarter, and got beaten up along the way. Probably after that, the Buddha didn't want him to follow him. 8.8 Visakha Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time, the Lord was staying near Savatthi in the eastern park at Migara's mother's mansion, that means Visakha's mansion. On that occasion, the dearly beloved grandchild of Visakha, Migara's mother, had died. Then Visakha, or Migara's mother, with wet clothes and hair, approached the Lord in the middle of the day. Having prostrated herself, she sat down to one side, and the Lord said to her, Where have you come from, Visakha, arriving here in the middle of the day with wet clothes and hair? And she said, Revered Sir, my dearly beloved grandchild has died. That is why I have arrived here in the middle of the day with wet clothes and hair. And the Buddha said, Visakha, would you like to have as many children and grandchildren as there are people in Savatthi? And she said, I would, Lord, like to have as many children and grandchildren as there are people in Savatthi. And the Buddha said, but how many people, Visakha, die daily in Savatthi? And she said, perhaps 10 people, revered sir, die daily in Savatthi, or perhaps 9 people, or 8 or 7 or 6, 5, 4, 3, 2 people died, or perhaps 1 person dies daily in Savatthi. Revered sir, Savatthi is never without people dying. And the Buddha said, what do you think, Visakha? Would you ever be without wet clothes or wet hair? So when the Buddha asked her, you like to have a lot of children and grandchildren, so much like the people in Savatthi, she quickly said yes. In that case, since people are dying every day, and then she'll be mourning every day. And then after thinking about it, she said, no, revered sir, enough with my having so many children and grandchildren. And the Buddha said, Visakha, those who have 100 dear ones have 100 sufferings. Those who have 90 dear ones have 90 sufferings. Those who have 80, 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10, 5, 4, 3, 2 dear ones have 2 sufferings. Those who have 1 dear one have 1 suffering. Those who have no dear ones have no suffering. They are sorrowless, stainless, without despair, I say. Then on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance. Whatever sorrows or lamentations there are, the various kinds of suffering in the world, it is because of something dear that these exist. Without something dear, these do not exist. So they are happy and free from sorrow, who having nothing dear anywhere in the world, so aspiring to be sorrowless and stainless, do not hold dear anything anywhere in the world. Although a lot of people know this, but most people are like Visakha, like to have as many children and grandchildren as possible. 8.9 Patama Dabba Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying near Rajagaha in the bamboo wood at the squirrel's feeding place. Then the venerable Dabba Malaputta approached the Lord, prostrated himself, sat down to one side and said to the Lord, now Sugata is the time for my final Nibbana. That means it's about to pass away. And the Buddha said, do now Dabba what you think it is time to do. Then the venerable Dabba Malaputta arose from his seat, prostrated himself before the Lord, and keeping his right side towards him, rose up in the air, and in the air, while sitting cross-legged in space, he entered into the fire element, emerged and attained final Nibbana. Now, when the venerable Dabba Malaputta entered into the fire element, emerged and attained final Nibbana, his body was burnt up and utterly consumed, so that neither ashes nor soot remained behind. Just as when ghee or oil is burnt and consumed, neither ashes nor soot remain behind. Even so it was with the venerable Dabba Malaputta, who attained final Nibbana. Then on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance. The body disintegrated, perception ceased, all feelings became cool, mental activities were calmed, and consciousness came to an end. 8.10 Duttiya Dabba Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying near Savatthi in the Jeta wood at Anathapindika's monastery. There the Lord addressed the monks, saying, monks, yes, most revered sir. Those monks responded to the Lord. The Lord said, when Dabba Malaputta rose up in the air and in the sky, while sitting cross-legged in space, entered into the fire element, emerged and attained final Nibbana. His body was burnt up and utterly consumed, so that neither ashes nor soot remained. Just as when ghee or oil is burned, so his body was burnt up and utterly consumed. Then on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance. Just as the born is not known of the gradual fading glow given off by the furnace-heated iron, as it is struck with the smith's hammer, so there is no pointing to the born of those perfectly released who have crossed the flood of bondage to sense desires and attain unshakable bliss. That's the end of the Udana. Anything to discuss? These suttas in the Udana, what is supposed to be important are the verses at the end of the suttas. And the prose before the verses seem to have been taken from other suttas. Some of them, they have shortened the sutta. I put it here. But some are original, not found in other suttas. Like this one. There is monks, the unborn, the unbecome, the uncreated, the unconditioned. This one is very good. Only an enlightened being like the Buddha knows there is this state of the unborn, the unbecome, the uncreated, the unconditioned, because he has experienced it. So when the Buddha was enlightened, he said, "O house builder, thou art seen. Thou shalt not build this house again." This house referring to the body. So the Buddha has seen the Creator. Only an enlightened person like the Buddha has seen the Creator. All the rest, all the other religions, none of them have seen the Creator.
People say that Devadatta will become a teaching of Buddha after a long period of time. Did the Buddha say this?
I don't think the Buddha mentioned this. A lot of things like this. Some other books say that Devadatta was a bodhisattva. He purposely want to kill the Buddha, and now he's in hell, but he's not suffering in hell. But in the suttas, the Buddha said, in the Vinaya books, the Buddha said that because of what Devadatta did, that he will go down to hell for a very, very long time. And he will have these 5 iron bars, hot iron bars poked through him at the 2 hands and the 2 feet, and 1 through his chest. And he will remain there for a very, very long time. So how can you have all these iron bars poked through you and you are not feeling any pain? And the Buddha also said that when he asked Venerable Sariputta to go and spread the news that Devadatta is no more a disciple of the Buddha, then he has gone off the track and is doing a lot of wrong things. Some people did not believe because Devadatta at one time his practice was very good, he had psychic powers. So when the monks came back to tell the Buddha said that what he said is true, cannot be otherwise. And the Buddha said he cannot see in Devadatta even a little bit of goodness in him. It's totally rotten. The Buddha said, just like a person has fallen into the shit hole. When he comes out of the shit hole, he cannot find a spot on his body where there is no shit. So in the same way, the Buddha said, you cannot find a bit of goodness in Devadatta.
If this is the case, why didn't the Buddha inject Devadatta
Normally, the Buddha doesn't take the trouble to go and find out in the future this person will become like this, will become like that. And also the Buddha does not make a precept until something goes wrong. Then only he says, okay, you don't do this. So in the same way, he won't eject somebody until he does wrong. In fact, the Buddha, we find in the Vinaya books, is very compassionate. There was a group of 6 monks who were always creating problems. And the Buddha didn't eject them also. Each time they create a problem, the Buddha will make a new precept. You must not do this. And they cause some more problem, the Buddha will make another precept. The Buddha was very compassionate. Unless they go overboard and cause problems for too much, then only because it's inconveniencing other monks only, then the Buddha will throw them out.
What happened is Dhammavuddho against one Vihara to do this experiment going on to the air?
No, he wasn't doing for people to see. It was just a clean way to go, you know. No environment is very environment friendly. You know? No dirt to pick up for anybody. And also it will be good for others, inspire you to follow in his footsteps.
Our curiosity, the monk's seniority is based on the number of vasas. What about those arahants?
Also based on vasa.
But even those that the arahants, then how do you know the two or one vasa? I mean, people don't know. I mean,
Yeah, why if a person is an Arya or an Arahant also, he doesn't want people to know. But there's exceptions also. Like this Venerable Sariputta and Moggallana, the Buddha purposely chose them to be his right hand and left hand disciples, even though they are not the most senior. There were other Arahants more senior than them. But the Buddha chose them because Sariputta is number one in wisdom, foremost in wisdom, and Moggallana is foremost in psychic power. That's the reason he chose them. Other than that, the others according to seniority. So like nowadays, a monk might be an Arya. But when he goes, say, when he meets another senior monk, the senior monk might be a Putujana. And still he pays respect. This is respecting the Dhamma and the Vinaya. No personal feelings.
Just out of curiosity, because I've been listening to Patali Sutta from the Nikaya, and very often Patali put things from the Vinaya books. Are lay people allowed to read the Vinaya books?
Now that the Vinaya books are around, there is no harm in reading the Vinaya books. The only thing is have to be careful. There are some people, after they know about the monks' Vinaya, they become very critical. They expect all the monks to follow all the precepts. But they don't understand that the Buddha said, even without prompting, the Buddha's last instructions told Venerable Ananda, if the Sangha wants to abolish certain minor rules, they can do so. So it depends on circumstances.
Because a lot of the stories or things we do not understand today, it's not in the Dhamma Sutta.
Yeah. But these Vinaya books are only available at present from the Pali Text Society. And if you buy them, it's not cheap also. That's why most people don't get them. The only thing is, in the Vinaya, the Buddha said, if a novice intends to take the higher ordination, then he should not be shown the Patimokkha, all the rules, the Vinaya books. Because at one time there was a novice who wanted to take the higher ordination. Then when he found out about the monks' precepts, so many precepts, and then he got cold feet, so he decided not to take the higher ordination. So from then the Buddha said, novice should not know more about the precepts. So sometimes the Buddha said that his monks would rather die than not uphold the precepts. And yet you find like in the Vinaya books, one time a monk came to tell the Buddha, he said, there are more than 150 precepts, so many I cannot keep up. Maybe it's a simple mind, I think so many, or maybe it's the fussy type. I think more than 150 precepts, he has to keep every one of them. So he finds very difficult to keep all these precepts. So he told the Buddha he cannot do it. Then the Buddha asked him, can you practice the higher morality, the higher mind and the higher wisdom? When you tell him three things, then he thought about it. Three things I can practice. Higher morality means try to keep a good standard, as long as you don't harm others. The higher mind means to practice meditation every day. And then the higher wisdom is to contemplate on the Dhamma, to understand the Dhamma. So he thought these three things I can keep, he told the Buddha. Then the Buddha said, you practice these three things enough. In fact, initially the Buddha did not create any precepts. Just allowed the monks to guide themselves. And many of them attained arahanthood. And a lot of people are not aware. In fact, in the Vinaya books, many of the precepts were created after the arahants broke those precepts. In other words, those precepts are not important. For example, there was an arahant who was walking a long distance, and in the evening he came to a village or town. Then they have these public resting places. So he asked to stay. When they asked the manager for a room to stay. And the manager happened to be a woman. And the woman said, all the rooms are taken up. But if you don't mind, you can take my room. And this Arahant, being very pure-minded and never thought of anything, say you can allow him to use the room, he will use. So he used the room. Then in the middle of the night, because he was very good looking and young, the woman came to tempt him. Then after that, of course, he was not moved. And the next morning he left. Then the woman apologized to him. And later, when he arrived at the monastery, he told the other monks about it. And then he came to the Buddha's ears. The Buddha asked him to come in front of all the other monks and asked him, is it true? And he said, yeah, it's true. And the Buddha from there made the precept that they cannot sleep in a room with another woman. And then another one was, there was one Arahant. He was staying up in the hill, quite far from the village. So he has to walk a long way, to come on alms round. Then go and pick for his food and then walk up the hill again. I experienced this when I was a young monk. I was staying at the outskirts of Bali Pulau on a high hill. I walked down and walked up. It took me 3 hours. And on an empty stomach, I feel very exhausted. So he decided, why every day go Pindabat? He be very simple. He's not fussy about his food. So when he brings back the food, he'll eat what he needs to eat. Then the rest of the rice of the food he will keep. And then when there is a sun, he will put it in the sun so that it can last. Then tomorrow he'll eat the same food. The day after he'll eat the same food. Then maybe he only goes on alms round once in 3 days. So when the news came to the Buddha also said cannot. But there is a precept. But to us it's not important. You're not hurting anybody by eating, keeping your food. But the Buddha doesn't want the monks to keep the food. And also the Buddha wants lay people to have the opportunity to get married every day. So a lot of people don't know a lot of these precepts actually. Even if we don't uphold the precept, we don't create bad karma. Out of the 227 precepts, only about 50, if a monk breaks the precept, it creates bad karma. For example, purposely killing an ant, purposely killing a bird that's making too much noise. This happened during the Buddha's time. A monk was trying to meditate. All these birds making so much noise, he got angry. He used to be an archer, Go and make a nice bow and arrow. He shot them, and then put them on a stick to frighten away the other birds, so they don't disturb his meditation.
Thank you very much, Bhante, because it's something really new. I mean, the Arahant, the precept, some of them are for the Arahant. It's very enlightening.
Okay, shall we end here?